Welcome everyone, I'm Adeshawa Josh and this is Africa Matters. This week we'll look at how an international court ruling to determine a seafloor border in the Indian Ocean is causing a stir on shore. Kenya and Somalia are locked in a maritime boundary dispute. As tensions rise, will the International Court of Justice settle the dispute once and for all? The World Health Organization has approved the world's first malaria vaccine, which could be a game changer for millions of people in sub-Saharan Africa. And praying for a safe return, we'll visit the school in Nigeria's Kaduna State, where parents are still hoping for their children's safe return 3 months after they were kidnapped. The relationship between Kenya and Somalia has always been a delicate one. Over the years, the East African neighbors have agreed to disagree on border security, diplomacy, and trade. Their latest row is over the direction of their border as it extends into the Indian Ocean, and there's a lot at stake.
Our maritime border is in dispute. Our heritage and the heritage of our children will not be for sale. Our borders can't be up for negotiation, whether it is sea, land or airspace.
The two countries share a land boundary that extends in a northwesterly direction from their Indian Ocean coastlines. And under international law, each is entitled to an exclusive economic zone extending 200 nautical miles or 370 kilometers into the sea. The current dispute arose when Somalia challenged the location of the border between those zones. Kenya argues that Somalia agreed to and recognized an east-west maritime boundary from 1979 until 2014, rather than the line Mogadishu now claims. Well, the reason it's also contentious is that the roughly 160,000 square kilometers of disputed ocean is valuable fishing territory and potentially contains vast oil and gas deposits. Naturally, both countries want to control those resources, and there have been several mediation attempts. The African Union and the Intergovernmental Authority on Development have both tried to intervene. Then in 2014, Somalia took its claims to the International Court of Justice in The Hague.
I'm really very pleased that the court has now accepted the jurisdiction of the case, so it's going to listen, and we are very happy with what happened this afternoon here.
Sadly, litigation can never resolve sensitive issues of security threats within the region. Kenya is confident of the strength of its case on the merits, namely that for over 30 years, Kenya has exercised uncontested jurisdiction in the maritime areas that Somalia now disputes.
And as the dispute drags on, the neighbors have accused each other of auctioning off the rights to the oil reserve. The uncertainty and hostility has already taken a toll on Kenya's Lamu County, where fishing communities fear they'll lose their livelihoods if the decision doesn't go their way.
I can say if we are losing fishing, we can say we are losing 50% of our livelihood, because normally our community in Lamu East, it is not educated. So, and Lamu County, we have no any industry to be invested. So if we are losing the fishing ground, we are totally losing our life.
It is not too late for the both countries, Somalia and Kenya, to explore other obvious channels, including IGAD, the African Union, or even our elders who have settled such differences for centuries.
Kenya boycotted the ICJ's proceedings in March, accusing the court of bias and of ignoring its plea to delay the hearings until after the pandemic. Let's get more from Nyaburi Nyandera, who teaches international relations and diplomacy at the Rwanda University in Kenya. He joins me from the capital, Nairobi. Thank you so much, Nyaburi. What's at stake here if either Kenya or Somalia loses at the ICJ, especially for the people living along the coastline of the disputed area?
Thank you for having me on the show. This particular dispute transcends mere legal questions. It touches on important historical, social, and geopolitical issues that cannot be resolved through a legal process. And that's why Kenya has been very reluctant to approach the International Court of Justice, because it believes having a broad land border with Somalia, apart from the maritime border, there's likelihood of other conflicts that can emerge even in the future. And a much bigger question that arises, therefore, is whether Kenya and Somalia will keep on inviting external actors to help them address their problems, which largely they can set precedents for local mechanisms in addressing these problems. And therefore, it is only fair that Somalia could have waited a little bit longer, tried to exploit local solutions before turning to the international court. But having said that, whichever way this court makes the judgment, it will have significant impact on economic and political situation for both countries. But more importantly, it is the question of whether or not this is only a Kenya-Somali dispute and whether other international actors, including multinational corporations, are also involved in this particular process.
Do you think that Somalia didn't wait long enough, especially because the AU and IGAD couldn't mediate this crisis?
I think this particular dispute is not unique. Territorial disputes are not unique to Kenya and Somalia. But what is unique about this particular case is that Somalia was very quick to head to the International Court of Justice, yet there has been precedent set, for example, in the southern border between Kenya and Tanzania, where through political negotiations and consensus, they were able to come up with a border. And therefore, given the weighty impact of the COVID-19 pandemic that is facing not just the region, but the whole world, I think the issue of the border could have waited a little bit longer because it requires a little bit of preparation, it requires a little bit of attention, and combining it with the current impacts of the pandemic, I think it was going to be a burden for both Kenya and Somalia to be dragged into an international court while trying to deal with the impact of a global pandemic that we're currently living through.
We go to northwestern Nigeria next, where more and more children are missing out on education as militant groups target schools. Administrators are increasing security to put parents' minds at ease and reassure frightened children. But as Palom David reports, parents say the government should do more to track down the kidnappers and prevent the attacks from happening in the first place.
Reverend Ishaya Adamu Jangado runs Bethel Baptist High School in Kaduna State, northwestern Nigeria. Kidnappers attacked the school at midnight on July 5th this year, abducting 121 children from their beds. They escaped into the night through a hole they made in the fence. Before the attack, Bethel Baptist had 183 students and 42 staff. Now, the classrooms are gathering dust and the playground is silent.
The day this incident happened, our students were about to start their exams, their end-of-time exams on that very day. So they missed the exams. And all schools in Kaduna State were closed. School have resumed about 2 weeks ago. And our school, we cannot resume because of what actually happened to us.
These are some of the footwears of abducted school children. This means they must have had to walk into the thick bushes, forests, or wherever they were kept on bare foot. More than 1,000 school children have been abducted. Teachers are also being taken away. UNICEF say about 1 million Nigerian children are afraid to return to school. To allay their fears, Jangado is relocating temporarily to a more secure site. Reverend Hayab Joseph is the chairman of the Kaduna State Christian Association. His son was kidnapped from Bethel Baptist School along with the others, but he managed to escape. He says the parents have given the kidnappers everything they asked for.
We've given them food, we've given them motorcycles, we've given them trampoline, we've given them, sometimes they will ask us for phone recharge card. We've given them. Their number is not strange because, interestingly, the same number they've been speaking to us from the 5th, because they started communicating that afternoon of the 5th. They've not even changed the number, so they are not even scared. They are really, really comfortable to discuss with us.
Authorities shut down the telecoms networks in some parts of Kaduna State late last month to try and block kidnappers from demanding ransom. Parents and teachers say the government should do more to prevent the abductions, and they gather here for 2 hours every day to pray for the safe return of their children still being held captive. Palom David, TRT World, Kaduna, Nigeria.
Still to come on the program. From China with love, a kung fu master teaches self-defense skills to young Ugandans. And
with improvements in university education, we see advancement in this Horn of Africa country. I am Mohammed Mahmoud in Mogadishu, bringing you the story of the first made in Somalia car.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's take into Kenya now, where the Maasai nomadic tribes say they have to abandon their lifestyles in order to survive. It could mean the end of a culture that dates back thousands of years. International aid groups say it's due to the economic hardship caused by the climate crisis, as Shoaib Hassan reports.
It may be the final chapter of a story that began more than 5,000 years ago. The famed Maasai of East Africa say they have to abandon their traditional lifestyle or face starvation. Climate change in the region has led to persistent drought, and land use has become contentious.
Due to drought in our traditional grazelands, we went to encroach on a neighboring village. They chased us in a gunfire exchange where we lost all the cattle and all my friends were killed by the bullets. So I decided to come back home where I found crop farming had already taken traction. I decided to join crop farming because the weather was no longer promising us grass and the short rains could sustain some crops in my area.
The grasslands of East Africa have provided pasture for Maasai livestock, and the colorful nomad hunters have inspired generations of photographers, artists and filmmakers seeking to capture the essence of Africa. But rising populations and lack of water means they are increasingly being sidelined in the struggle for survival as the grasslands give way to farms. Local NGOs working to reverse or stop the change are increasingly pessimistic.
With climate change, I think this could be the beginning of the end of African pastoralism as we have known it over the years. Because we could no longer rely on the traditional rainfall systems. We can no longer rely on the traditional weather forecasts.
The Maasai say that's left them in despair, not just at losing their land, but also their sense of identity.
From the way the weather has become unpredictable, our children will never be like us. The way we were brought up on how to locate grazing lands. They will only know the language but never understand the Maasai traditions.
That's a loss not just for this part of Africa, but for global culture, as age-old traditions gradually fade away. Shoaib Hassan, TRT World.
Climate change eroding culture is another reason to tackle the crisis head-on. Well, we'll stay in East Africa and head to Somalia, where it has maintained a vibrant informal economy despite the lack of a manufacturing capacity. Although agriculture is the country's most important sector, a university student has built a car and believes there's potential for his country to go down a new avenue. Mohammed Mahmoud reports from Mogadishu.
Abdullahi Usman Dahir is a fourth-year engineering student at the University of Hormuz in Mogadishu with the dreams of starting his own car factory in the near future.
Whatever we learned in the university should not only be theory. It should be practical. Hard work and mechanical engineering skills that will allow us to use these skills to our benefit.
Abdullahi decided to build a car from the ground up with the help of his fellow students. They sourced locally available materials, but without proper training and a state-of-the-art garage, it took the engineers a whole year to make just one prototype at a cost of around $5,000. They raised money from their own pockets and university funds, and the venture has attracted a lot of positive reviews locally.
We believe that we can get even more youths who can come up with such initiatives if they get support and motivation. There are more youths with different skills and talents, but the country is still underdeveloped.
Somalia imports almost all its cars from Japan. Economic analysts say the country has a long way in manufacturing its own vehicles, but believe this is the first step in opening up opportunities for youths in other fields.
The government can support the youth by providing a platform that allows them to create more products
and also improve the laws of the country to open more opportunities.
The World Bank says sub-Saharan Africa is projected to remain the fastest growing economic region in the world, and with that comes increased spending, particularly for the continent's middle class, looking to splurge on products including new personal vehicles. But even though this locally made car is not roadworthy yet, people here say the road to innovation is wide open. Somalia imports almost everything, meaning it has a large trade deficit with different countries. The first Made in Somalia car initiative is the first of its kind, bringing hope to a younger population that is keen in seeking ways to improve their country. Mohammed Mahmoud, TRT World, Mogadishu.
Let's take a look at some other stories making headlines on the continent this week. The World Food Programme is warning that up to 7 million people across Ethiopia's northern Tigray, Amhara, and Afar regions need urgent food assistance. The UN agency says its distribution of food and fuel supplies is lagging behind schedule because of security and logistical challenges. Since August, WFP has delivered food to only 300,000 people in Amhara and Afar and 2.5 million in Tigray. That's less than half the number identified as in urgent need of assistance. A report by the UN's cultural agency UNESCO reveals that even though Africa has fewer screens per capita than other continents, its film industry could create more than 20 million new jobs. It also has the potential to bring in about $20 billion in revenue. UNESCO says affordable digital film equipment and online distribution platforms have provided new opportunities to content creators, but piracy is still a major problem, robbing filmmakers of up to 75% of their revenue, and only a third of African countries offer financial support to filmmakers. And authorities in Kinshasa and Brazzaville have launched a campaign to put Congolese rumba on UNESCO's list of intangible cultural heritage. It's one of the most popular forms of music in Africa, inspired by Latin and Caribbean rhythms. The Congolese rumba dates back to the 1940s, but it gained widespread popularity across the continent in the 1960s and 70s, with musicians developing spin-offs, including a high-tempo version called Sukus. Come with me to Rwanda, where during the genocide against the Tutsis in 1994, Muslims made up only 1% of the Rwandan population. Although no census has been taken, the Rwandan Muslim community estimates there are now about 1,800,000 faithful, which is about 15% of that population. Before the coronavirus pandemic, imams would hold large gatherings in villages and towns across Rwanda to preach to non-Muslims. But nowadays, they've been forced to change their tactics, as Usman Aliyuba finds out.
Abdallah Habayo is the latest Muslim convert in the Western District of Karongi. He's among the many Rwandans who are turning to the faith.
I was charmed by the love that characterizes Muslims, and I would like to do as they do. I have decided to be a true Muslim. I want to go deeper into their teachings. That's why I converted to Islam.
Haji Suleiman Kamana used to be a pastor in the Christian Methodist Church. But for the past 15 years, he's been traveling across the country, inviting people to join Islam. Before the pandemic, Kamana could preach in front of a large crowd. But that's changed under COVID-19 restrictions and a government directive for places of worship to comply with health, safety and noise regulations.
We are in a difficult period because of the coronavirus. There is no way to gather people to preach. That's why if we come across two people, we take advantage of the opportunity and preach then and there.
Islam has been growing steadily in Rwanda, a mostly Roman Catholic country, since 800,000 Tutsis were killed over a 100-day period in 1994.
If we look at Islam before the genocide and after the genocide, there is a big difference. You can see the progression in this country. I believe that in the next 10 years, Islam can reach 30% of the population.
Many say it was the willingness of Muslims to rescue or hide Tutsis from their attackers. although there is no official data on how many people sought shelter at mosques. There is evidence that thousands of members of the minority ethnic group were killed in churches.
Muslim was not involved into genocide. That is the reason why, after we survived the genocide, people were looking at, and people have some trauma, some emotional and psychological shock. So the priest killed my father. I cannot be a Christian. Are we going to a Muslim? Because they were not involved.
And as the Rwandan government continues to ease COVID-19 restrictions, many converts like Kamana hope Islam will take root and flourish even more. Usman Aliyu Uba, TRT World.
Self-defense can be a very useful skill. In Uganda, one martial arts enthusiast who studied under Kung Fu masters in China is teaching young people how to punch and kick their way to safety and success.
This is Manusira Kiza Sejemba's backyard, and these are his Kung Fu students. Kiza opened the Kimanli Fitness Club to teach self-defense and fitness to young people.
I decided, no, these girls, they need to get what they call self-defense, so that they can at least fight for themselves. If you come and attack her, if you want to rape her, she will be able to defend herself. That's why you see they are practicing. Yes, and also to keep their body, to be physically fit, and also to have power.
30-year-old Sejemba grew up watching Jet Li films and fell in love with martial arts as a teenager. He trained in kickboxing, becoming so skilled that by 2009 he was starring in low-budget Ugandan action films. In 2017, his acting career took him to China, where he trained with Kung Fu experts as part of a film production. The trip made him love the craft even more, and he returned home, determined to share it with others. In Uganda, his classes are particularly popular among girls.
The skills I have learned so far include Mabu. It has helped me to gain strength, steadiness, and fitness. Kiai has made my legs stronger. Wubi Chuan improved my speed.
I plan to use the techniques I have learned to defend myself from those who may want to kidnap me and want to use me for sacrifices. When I'm fit and healthy, I'll be able to fight off the wrong people and save myself.
Sejemba sees Kung Fu as a way of lifelong learning for people of all ages. Even his 5-year-old daughter is among the students, and he has high hopes for them all.
What I need from Kung Fu here in Uganda, I need at least to get, even if one person can go and compete in Olympics, World Olympics, I think it will be very, very better for me. And I will never give up until Kung Fu reaches on top.
With the right attitude and plenty of hard work, Sejemba and his trainees know that anything is possible. Dominic Brano-Mondi, TRT World.
Finally, as part of our program, we'll explore a new African city every week. We begin with Mbuji-Mayi in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. You may not have heard of it before, but 1 in every 10 diamonds comes from the city. Have a look. And that's our show this week. Please let me know what you think about the stories you've seen today on the program and share your thoughts and suggestions on what you want us to cover on Twitter using the hashtag #AfricaMatters. Or you can reach out to me on my personal handle. It is @AdeshawaJosh. Thanks a lot again, and I will see you next week.